where you're at now. Like, where did that lead to, and what are you providing now, especially for men?
Yeah, so basically, on my journey of self-discovery, I did yoga and meditation, and I got into consciousness spills, and I did retreats and workshops, and I started to really explore my edges and push my own envelope. I hitchhiked across Europe, and I walked across countries, and I did everything that made me feel uncomfortable. And I realized on the other side of that I don't die. Parts of me die, but I don't physically die. And parts of my emotional body die, parts of my stories die. But at the end of the day, I'm actually, well, to be honest, I'm actually fucking indestructible. And once I moved through certain stories that I had, I was like, well, what else isn't real? And, that just led me on a deeper journey. And now basically, and for me, sexuality was a huge thing, a big thing. I loved having sex with women. I loved having sex. I loved sexuality. I loved, everything to do with connection and intimacy. And that was one of my ways to experience love in that moment of my life. And so but I was, like I said, premature ejaculation, porn addiction, erection issues. They were all things that were still a little bit present in my life. And so I went into a journey with that, because I feel like it's one of the most deeply rooted causes of anxiety or depression or insecurity in men is our sexuality. Like, how are we big enough? Do we last long enough? Did she come? Did we create enough space? Does she want to make love to me again? Like whatever it is, and in a world where we pretty much get our sex education from porn, it doesn't really teach us about the heart. So we run too much animal, too much cock, and not enough heart, or we're too scared of our animal because, we're told that it's too much. And so we play out Mr. Nice Guy in the heart, and we actually never stand for anything in the world. And that has been my journey, like I was running animal all the time, and I kind of gave that up for a little while and went into the heart and learned how to expose that, learned how to love deeply, and let my walls get broken and shattered, and realize that actually nothing happens. I feel, don't get me wrong, like I feel lots, and I cry, and I emotionally release, and I express all my feelings, but all that does is actually increase my capacity to love, not just others, yes, but actually myself.
Yes. You reminded me, I was at I think I was at the California Tantra Festival a few years ago, and Dean, who we both know, was leading a puja, and I sat down with someone, and the question was, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would you tell your younger self? And I looked at my partner and I said, I would tell my younger self not to worry about getting my heart broken over and over and over again, because at this point in my life, my heart is so big. It has capacity for more than I ever imagined. And I would still do it over and over and over again. Like nothing could stop me. Like it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
So, I totally get it. Yeah. So you got your heart broken. You have more of a capacity to love.
Yeah. And so then I started, and I have this ability, like I said, I was Moby, I was the one that always did nudie runs, or I was a bit wild, and I always did dumb shit. And I always spoke about things that no one would speak about. And I did it in the past to be seen and be heard, right? To be the one, to be the most outrageous. And when I kind of got on the other side of a large chunk of my journey after a couple of years, I was like, well, what's my offering? What do I want to do, and what do I want to bring? And I realized that I do have this shamelessness, this sense, this ability to talk about things. I'm not scared to talk about the fact that I had premature ejaculation, or that I had erectile issues, or that I still have erectile issues at the moment, because I've just been coming through some heartbreak. And so, my erections are in conjunction with that. So if my heart's not turned on, my cock doesn't get turned on. And I'm not ashamed to talk about that. For me, it's like the less we talk about it, the more it goes in the shadow, and the more it's in the shadow, the more depression, the more anxiety, the more fear, the more the less intimacy and the less love we can experience. So why would I want to not talk about it if I know that once I've spoken about it, I can experience a deeper sense of fulfillment, one, inside of myself, and two, with whoever I'm sharing this with. And why would I not want to share that with the whole world? Why would I not want to have intimate encounters with the entire world on different levels, you know? And so that's kind of my mission now. It's just like to make as much noise as I possibly can about all the stuff that no one really wants to talk about, and create this, you know, where you and I are in a love revolution and in a heart revolution, you know, with some of the circles that we're involved in. It's like, but I knew that for years and years, I couldn't see it. I couldn't hear it. No one I knew was talking about it. So basically, I just want to I want to stand on the top of some really big thing and scream really loud and get as much people's attention as I possibly can. And thanks to social media, I have a platform. Unfortunately, my Instagram account just got deleted because I do talk about some stuff that's confronting, and it brings up stuff for people.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm restarting that, and I'm trying to get it back anyway. But yeah, I now coach men mostly. I do work with some women, but I mostly coach men around, you know, connecting their cock to their heart. Like how can you honor this animal part of you that wants to fuck the entire world and wants to ravish and kill and destroy? How can we tap into that and honor that and allow that space to move? Because let's be honest, we all love it. Like I love it when I'm in it. Women that I'm with love it when I'm in it. But when they feel safe, you know, when it comes from that, when they know that they can say stop at any moment and it's not overriding boundaries, it's not overriding the no that they may feel. So being able to connect to the heart, knowing that at any moment you're on the verge of control, like you're in control, but you're kind of, what's fun is the part that's being out of control. And you're not going to know that until you play in the two. And that's also in control of the heart. You know, we try to be in control of the heart, so we build barriers around it so we don't feel. But actually removing that and being on the edge of the fear from the heart intimacy of like, holy shit, if I say one more sentence, if I really express this thing that I don't want to express, will they love me? That edge there is also where intimacy is created. So learning to play in the extremes of is for me what creates the wild, phenomenal, chaotic, like inexpressible forms of love that we deep down, I'm not going to say all, but most of us yearn for, because we live in these boring fucking lives where we do the same thing every fucking day for 60 years. And like it's needed, but how do we create the life that we want inside of that? Like how can we create more intimacy, more depth, more passion, more fire in this life that we live, you know, repetitively having families and having day jobs?
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. The question is so valid. And when we speak to people and we say, you know, what's missing, it's passion, it's fire, everything that you just mentioned. Passion, fire, being ravished, being in the animal. And then there's the discrepancy, like women, since they watched that movie, 50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey.
They read the book, 50 Shades of Grey, which both were not, in my opinion, not great. But at least it gave people
activated.
a taste for it. You know, it activated, some new desires. But then men are like, I wasn't brought up like that. I can't do that. I don't know if I couldn't, you know, I'd be afraid. And so everyone's still got these fears, and for some women, they're like, well, if I tell him this is what I really want, he's not going to love me because he's going to think I'm weird. And a lot of men are saying to me, well, if I do that to her, what she's asking for, she's going to be scared and it's going to scare me. So we're living again. I mean, it's just like whatever the paradigm is, people start to settle for these really boring lives, and yet they're inside, they're loathing their choices. So, you know, so you're coaching men, and I mean, give us an example of like what you're saying to them. Like what kinds of men come to you?
Oh, every type of man. So I run two programs, one called Shameless Sex God and one called Priests of Phallic Power. Shameless Sex God is on the back burner right now. I just finished running it again, and in that I had they were all Australian. I had an ex-bikie gang member. I had two guys that worked out in the mines. I had an aged care worker. I had what else did I have? I had a guy from the BDSM scene, in the BDSM and kink field. There's no, and I just had and I had a regular guy, just works in the office. So and this is what I love, when I got into coaching, I signed up to a thing and they're like, what's your niche? And I was like, men. And they were like, what's your niche? I was like, men. And this is the thing. It's just like, it's generally older men, to be honest, generally men over 35, because they're kind of at a point where they realize that they've missed something, like they've realized that the education they've had or the awareness that they've been brought up with is lacking in some area. And they're finally at a point where they can acknowledge it. They're past their I know everything stage, and they're like, actually, I'm humble enough to find out more information around things that I don't know. So it's generally older men, 35, 40 plus, but men that have, been sexually abused, or men that have been emotionally abused by women and have a very hard time opening up to them because they're afraid that they'll be ridiculed or judged or shamed, typically speaking, men that have some form of, I don't like to use the word trauma, but let's say trauma, or at least really negative experience in relationships or in sex.
Yeah.
And they have something there that they, are unaware of. And, it's some of it's very basic, but some of it's quite deep. So, like just teaching them how to communicate their feelings and teaching them how to, and also what the truth is. I work with one guy, and his desire, he's like, I want to be in an orgy and I want to fuck lots of people and I want to do this, right? And it's like pretty standard desire. Most men have that desire. It's something that and probably some women too. And it's like, I've had that desire for ages. And I was like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do an action step. What can you do this week to move towards that? And he froze. Yeah. And he went into complete freeze. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if it's a desire, let's move in towards this desire. Like, go organize it, go find a sex party that you can go to. And he went into complete freeze and shut down. And I've had this exact same experience. I've been in a group environment where there was basically an orgy happening and I could not move. I went into complete freeze and shut down, because my, let's say, inner child or my inner feminine, whatever you want to call it, got scared. Because actually my desires were fueled by my fantasies, which were fueled by the concept of what makes a man. And, my truth was actually a far cry from that, And it's not to say that I would not enjoy a group sex activity, but there has to be heart for me. There has to be love and heart. It can't just be just like, I can't not know anyone. And I'm not shaming anyone where that's okay for them. If that's maybe them getting into their animal more, that's fine. But I'm not there personally. Yeah. So it's also peeling. Yeah. It's also peeling away the layers of what we think is real and to find out what is real.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. In the old days, for me, I could have a one night stand and it'd be like really hard for me to do that now.
Yeah.
Just like not, anonymous kind of one night stand. Yeah, that was good. And can you leave before morning? Yeah. I don't think I could do that anymore. There has to be some connection. It's something, we know this man, Xavier, and Xavier said, before I'm going to have sex with anybody, he said, I want to make sure they're going to be in my life in some way.
Yeah.
He said, they don't have to be my lover, my ongoing partner, my ongoing anything, but I want to just make sure there is some loving connection there. So you're saying that, and, let's say it again, because women have a misconception about that when it comes to men. Women think that men could just keep doing it over and over again with no connection. And here you are, a guy who's been a party guy, a guy who's, been all the things that guys are brought up to be, and you're saying, no, if it's no heart, I'm not interested in it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you thanks for saying it.
Yeah, and I went through a lot of shame acknowledging that, and I still feel it now sometimes, being with a beautiful woman who, wants to take things further, and I need to say no. I need to say, like, I'm sorry, I'm a no right now. I don't want to do this. Like,